We've been together for 4 years and have a child, but he refuses to marry. What are my options? It all started 5 years ago when I first met Michael at a mutual friend's party. He was charming, witty, and had this incredible ability to make everyone around him laugh. I was instantly drawn to his charisma, and before the night was over, we found ourselves engrossed in deep conversation. We exchanged numbers, and that was the beginning of our love story. Michael and I began dating, and it didn't take long for us to realize we were meant to be together. Our relationship grew stronger with each passing day, and after a year, we decided to move in together. Living together was a big step, but it felt right. We were in sync, and our love continued to blossom. A year into our cohabitation, I discovered I was pregnant. The news was both surprising and joyous. We were thrilled to become parents and welcomed our beautiful son, Alex, into the world. Being parents brought us even closer, and I felt more connected to Michael than ever before. As our relationship progressed, I naturally began to think about marriage. After all, we had been together for several years, shared a home, and now had a child together. It seemed like the next logical step. So, I brought up the topic of marriage, excited to see what Michael had to say. The first time I mentioned it, Michael brushed it off with a casual remark about wanting to have a wedding that was unique and different. He said he wanted to save up enough money for a ring that would truly signify our bond. His words seemed reasonable at the time, so I didn't press the issue further. Months went by, and every time I brought up marriage, Michael had a new excuse. "Why don't you propose to me?" he said once, catching me off guard. When I playfully agreed, he laughed it off, saying he wouldn't say yes. It became a running joke between us, but deep down, it bothered me. Recently, I decided it was time for a serious discussion. I needed to understand why Michael was so hesitant to take this step. We sat down one evening after putting Alex to bed, and I asked him directly why he didn't want to marry me. After a long pause, he finally came clean. He told me he didn't want to marry me now because he felt I still had growing to do. According to him, I was a bit too childish, and he wasn't ready to commit to marriage under those circumstances. His words hit me like a ton of bricks. I felt a mix of confusion, frustration, and hurt. I had grown so much since we first met, and I was doing my best to be a good partner and mother. Yet, here he was, telling me I wasn't enough. I knew I had my flaws, but who didn't? I also felt Michael was a bit childish at times, but that didn't change my desire to marry him. We had been together for 4 years, lived together for almost as long, and had a 3-year-old child. What else was he looking for? He said I was an emotional thinker and tended to seek revenge when wronged. While I admitted I had grown a lot from those tendencies, it didn't seem like a valid reason to delay marriage, especially after all we had been through together. So here we are, stuck in this limbo. I love Michael, and I want to spend the rest of my life with him. He says he feels the same way, yet there is no ring on my finger. The question remains, how much longer will I have to wait for him to be ready? And more importantly, will he ever be? The first serious conversation about marriage came on a quiet Sunday evening. We had just put Alex to bed, and the house was filled with the soft hum of the dishwasher. I decided it was time to bring up the topic again, but this time I needed real answers. "Michael, can we talk?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He looked up from his book, sensing the gravity in my tone. "Sure, what's on your mind?" I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "I want to know why you don't want to get married. We've been together for 4 years, we live together, and we have a child. I need to understand what's holding you back." Michael sighed and put his book down. "I've told you before. It's not that I don't want to marry you. I just think we need more time." I could feel my frustration bubbling up. "More time for what? We've had plenty of time. I need you to be honest with me. What's the real reason?" He hesitated, his eyes avoiding mine. "I don't think you're ready," he finally said, his voice low. "Not ready? What does that even mean?" My confusion quickly turned into hurt. "We've been through so much together, and now you're saying I'm not ready?" Michael took a deep breath. "You're too emotional, Emily. You let your feelings control you, and you get revenge when you feel wronged. It's not something I want to deal with for the rest of my life." His words cut deep. "I've grown so much since we first met. I've been working on myself, trying to be a better partner and mother. How can you say I haven't changed?" Michael shook his head. "You have changed, but not enough. Just last week, when we had that argument about the bills, you went out and spent money on things we didn't need just to spite me." I remembered the incident vividly. We had argued about our finances, and in my anger, I had bought some unnecessary items online. It was a moment of weakness, but I didn't think it defined me. "I was upset, Michael. Everyone makes mistakes. But it's not just that, he continued. You always make a big deal out of small issues, like when my sister didn't invite us to her birthday party. You were furious and refused to talk to her for weeks. You can't keep giving your energy to every little thing. His words felt like a barrage, each one hitting harder than the last. I care about family and friends, Michael. I give my energy to the people I love. Isn't that what we're supposed to do? But you take it too far, he said, his tone firm. You make everything more dramatic than it needs to be. It's exhausting. I felt tears welling up in my eyes. So you're saying I'm too much for you? No, that's not what I mean, he said, softening. I love you, Emily. I really do. But marriage is a big step, and I need to be sure that we're both ready for it. I wiped away a tear, feeling a mix of frustration and sorrow. I've been trying so hard, Michael. I don't know what more I can do to prove that I'm ready. He reached out and took my hand. I see how hard you're trying, but I need you to understand that it's not just about proving something to me. It's about us being truly ready for the commitment of marriage. I don't want us to rush into it and end up regretting it later. I looked into his eyes, searching for any sign of reassurance. So what do we do now? We keep working on ourselves and our relationship, he said. We take things one step at a time and see where it leads us. I'm not saying no to marriage forever. I just want us to be in the best place possible when we take that step. His words were meant to be comforting, but they left me feeling unsettled. I wanted to believe that we could work through our issues, but a part of me couldn't shake the feeling of being unjustly judged. I had grown so much, yet it never seemed to be enough. As we sat there in silence, holding hands, I realized that this was just the beginning of a much longer journey, one filled with challenges, growth, and hopefully, eventually, the commitment we both desired. That night after our conversation, I lay awake in bed, Michael's words echoing in my mind. Too emotional, childish, seeking revenge. Each accusation felt like a dagger piercing through my confidence and leaving me vulnerable. I couldn't help but replay our past arguments, searching for moments that justified his claims. I remembered the argument about the bills. I had been so angry that Michael had spent money on something unnecessary while we were trying to save. In my frustration, I went online and bought a few things I didn't need just to prove a point. At the time, it felt like a small act of rebellion, but now it seemed like a glaring example of the behavior he criticized. There was also the incident with his sister's birthday party. When we weren't invited, I felt deeply hurt. Family was important to me, and I took the exclusion personally. My reaction had been intense. I refused to speak to her for weeks. Michael had tried to explain that it wasn't a deliberate snub, but I couldn't see past my own feelings of rejection. As I reflected on these moments, I began to see a pattern. Michael was right about some things. I did let my emotions drive my actions more often than I should have. My tendency to react strongly, to seek some form of justice when I felt wronged, was something I needed to work on. But was this enough to delay marriage indefinitely? Wasn't everyone a work in progress? I thought about the changes I'd made over the years. When Michael and I first started dating, I was more impulsive, less thoughtful about the consequences of my actions. I had learned to communicate better, to pause and think before reacting. I had taken steps to manage my emotions, like practicing mindfulness and seeking advice from friends when I felt overwhelmed. Still, Michael's words had planted a seed of self-doubt. Was I really as immature as he made me out to be? Or was he using these flaws as an excuse to avoid commitment? I needed perspective, so I decided to talk to my best friend, Sarah, over coffee the next day. I poured out my heart to her. Michael thinks I'm too emotional and childish to get married, I said, my voice tinged with frustration. He says I need to grow more before he's ready. Sarah listened patiently, her brow furrowed in concern. Emily, you've grown a lot since I've known you. We all have our moments, but that doesn't define who you are. I sighed, stirring my coffee absent-mindedly. But what if he's right? What if I'm not ready? She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Everyone has things they need to work on. The important thing is that you're aware and you're trying to improve. Relationships are about growing together, not waiting for one person to be perfect. Her words offered some comfort, but I still felt a lingering uncertainty. Later, I decided to talk to my mother, hoping for a more seasoned perspective. My mom had always been my rock, providing wisdom and guidance through the toughest times. When I told her about my conversation with Michael, she took a moment to think before responding. Emily, marriage is a big step, and it's good that Michael is thinking about it seriously. But it sounds like he's focusing on your flaws rather than seeing how you complement each other. she said gently. You need to consider if he's also willing to grow and change. Marriage is about supporting each other through that journey. I nodded, absorbing her words. Do you think I'm ready for marriage? Only you can answer that, she replied. But I can tell you this. No one is ever truly ready in the way they think they need to be. It's about being willing to face challenges together and grow from them. My mother's perspective helped me see things more clearly. It wasn't just about my readiness. It was about our readiness as a couple. Was Michael willing to work on his own issues and support me through mine? Or was he using my flaws as a shield to protect himself from commitment? As the days passed, I continued to reflect on our relationship. I realized that while I had areas to improve, so did Michael. His reluctance to marry might stem from his own fears and insecurities, not just my perceived immaturity. I needed to have an honest conversation with him about his own growth and our future together. With renewed determination, I decided to approach Michael again. This time, I would not only address his concerns about me, but also express my expectations for him. Marriage was a partnership, and if we were to move forward, we both needed to be committed to growing together. I didn't have all the answers, but I knew one thing for sure. I loved Michael and wanted to build a future with him, and that meant facing our challenges head-on with honesty and openness. It was time to see if he felt the same way. A few weeks after our initial conversation, I gathered my courage for another serious talk with Michael. I had spent a lot of time reflecting on his words and my actions, but I still felt there were unresolved issues between us. I needed clarity, not just for myself, but for the future of our relationship. The breaking point came one evening after a particularly stressful day at work. I had been juggling multiple deadlines and dealing with a demanding client, and by the time I got home, I was exhausted. Michael was in the kitchen making dinner, and Alex was playing with his toys in the living room. The sight of our cozy home usually brought me comfort, but tonight it only reminded me of the unresolved tension between us. As we sat down to eat, I couldn't hold back any longer. Michael, we need to talk, I said, my voice strained. He looked up, sensing the gravity of my tone. About what? About us. About this endless limbo we're in, I replied, my frustration boiling over. Michael sighed, setting down his fork. Emily, we've talked about this so many times. What more is there to say? I felt a surge of anger. There's plenty to say. We've been together for 4 years, Michael. We have a child together, and yet you still can't commit to marrying me. I'm tired of waiting. His eyes flashed with irritation. It's not that simple, and you know it. I've explained my reasons. But your reasons keep changing. I snapped. First it was about money and the perfect ring. Then it was about my emotional growth. Now it's about how I misallocate my energy. When will it ever be enough? Michael stood up, pacing the kitchen. I just want us to be ready, Emily. I don't want to rush into something we might regret. I stood up too, my hands trembling with emotion. This isn't just about being ready. It's about you being afraid to commit. You're hiding behind these excuses because you're scared. He stopped pacing and faced me, his expression hardening. That's not fair. I'm being honest about my concerns. It's not just about me. It's about both of us. I could feel tears welling up, but I refused to back down. I've been working so hard to address your concerns. I've grown so much, Michael, but you keep moving the goalposts. It's like nothing I do is ever good enough for you. Michael's face softened, but his eyes remained resolute. I see how hard you're trying, Emily. I do. But I need to feel secure too. I need to know that we're both in a place where we can handle the challenges of marriage. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. And what if we never get there? What if you never feel secure enough? Are we just going to keep living like this, pretending everything's fine while we avoid the real issues? He didn't answer immediately, and the silence between us grew heavy. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't know. That was it. That was the moment I realized I couldn't keep living in this uncertainty. Michael, I can't do this anymore, I said, my voice trembling. I love you, but I can't keep waiting for you to decide if I'm worth marrying. I need to know where we stand. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of sorrow and fear. What are you saying? I'm saying that we need to make a decision. Either we work through this and commit to each other fully, or we go our separate ways, I said, my heart breaking with each word. Michael stared at me, his face pale. Emily, don't do this. We have a child together. We can figure this out. I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. I can't keep living in this limbo, Michael. It's not fair to me, and it's not fair to Alex. We need to make a choice. The next few days were a blur of tension and sadness. Michael and I barely spoke, the weight of our unresolved argument hanging over us. Alex sensed the change, becoming more clingy and anxious. It broke my heart to see him affected by our conflict. One evening, as I was putting Alex to bed, he looked up at me with wide, innocent eyes. "Mommy, are you and Daddy mad at each other?" I felt a lump in my throat, struggling to find the right words. "No, sweetheart. Mommy and Daddy are just trying to figure some things out. But we both love you very much." His small arms wrapped around my neck, and I held him close, wishing I could shield him from the turmoil in our lives. That night, Michael and I sat down for one final conversation. "We need to make a decision, Michael, for us and for Alex," I said, my voice firm but gentle. He nodded, looking weary. "You're right. We can't keep doing this." At that moment, we both knew that something had to change. It was time to either face our fears and commit to each other fully, or to let go and find our own paths. Whatever the outcome, it would be a turning point in our lives, a moment that would define our future and the future of our family. That final conversation was one of the hardest moments of my life. We sat on the couch facing each other, the weight of our shared history pressing down on us. Michael took a deep breath, breaking the heavy silence. "Emily, I've been thinking a lot about what you said," he began, his voice trembling. "I know I've been unfair to you, constantly changing my reasons for not wanting to get married. It's not just about you needing to grow. I realize now that I've been projecting my own fears and insecurities onto you." I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. "I understand, Michael. We both have our issues, and it's not fair for either of us to shoulder all the blame. But we need to decide what's best for us and for Alex." He looked at me, his eyes filled with tears. "I don't want to lose you, Emily. I love you and our family. But I also see that we've reached a point where we need to make a real commitment to change, or we need to accept that maybe we're not meant to be." I wiped away my own tears, my heart aching. "I love you too, Michael, and I want to believe that we can work through this. But we need to be honest with ourselves. Are we truly willing to put in the effort to grow together?" We sat in silence for a long time, each of us lost in our thoughts. Finally, Michael spoke. "I think we both know that this isn't working anymore. We're hurting each other more than helping. Maybe it's time we consider separating, for our sake and Alex's." The words hung in the air, heavy and final. I felt a mixture of sadness and relief. "I think you're right," I said softly. "We've been trying so hard, but sometimes love isn't enough. We need to give ourselves the chance to heal and grow separately." In the days that followed, we began the difficult process of untangling our lives. We sat down with Alex and explained as gently as we could that Mommy and Daddy would be living in different homes, but that we both loved him very much. His innocent eyes filled with confusion and tears, and it broke my heart, but I knew this was the right decision for all of us. Michael found a small apartment nearby, wanting to stay close to Alex. We agreed on shared custody, with Alex spending half the week with each of us. The transition was hard on all of us, but we made it work, keeping Alex's well-being at the forefront of our decisions. As I settled into my new routine, I focused on rebuilding my life. I threw myself into my work, finding solace in the productivity and the sense of accomplishment it brought. I also reconnected with friends I had neglected, finding strength and support in their presence. I took up yoga and meditation, practices that helped me manage my emotions and find inner peace. Michael, too, was on his own journey of self-discovery. He started seeing a therapist to work through his fears and insecurities. He began taking night classes to further his education and career, something he had always talked about but never pursued. We remained amicable, communicating openly about Alex's needs and occasionally catching up over coffee to discuss how we were coping with the changes. One evening, a few months after our separation, I sat down with Alex as he was drawing pictures of our family. He looked up at me and asked, "Mommy, are you and Daddy happier now?" I paused, considering his question. "Yes, sweetheart, we are. It's been hard, but sometimes people need to follow different paths to be the best they can be. Daddy and I both want to be the best parents we can for you." He nodded, seemingly satisfied with my answer, and returned to his drawing. Watching him, I realized how resilient children are and how important it is to model strength and positivity for him. As time passed, I found myself growing in ways I hadn't anticipated. I became more confident, more self-assured. I discovered passions and interests I had long forgotten, buried under the weight of a strained relationship. I began to see a future that was bright and full of possibilities, a future where I could be truly happy and fulfilled. Michael and I continued to co-parent effectively, creating a stable and loving environment for Alex. We attended his school events together, celebrated his milestones, and ensured he felt the love and support of both his parents. Our relationship, though no longer romantic, became one of mutual respect and collaboration. One day, while browsing through some old photos, I stumbled upon a picture of Michael and me from the early days of our relationship. We looked so happy, so full of hope. A pang of nostalgia hit me, but it was accompanied by a sense of peace. We had shared wonderful moments and had grown together, but we had also grown apart. Our decision to separate was not a failure, but a necessary step towards personal growth and happiness. As I looked towards the future, I felt hopeful. I was open to new experiences, new relationships, and new opportunities. I knew that life would continue to present challenges, but I was stronger and more resilient now. I was ready to embrace whatever came next, secure in the knowledge that I was on the right path for myself and for Alex.